everyone, and welcome back. It is time yet again for the Fantasy Football Apocalypse.
Woo!
I am Trent Scott, and that is Jeremy Scott.
Welcome back. What is this week? 11. So we've done 10 minus, what did we skip? 2 episodes?
2 episodes plus you missed another one for the birth of your son, where we had guest host Aaron Reike. So this will be your 8th episode, our 9th episode overall.
Who beat you, by the way? But I did not.
Good, because you can't. You're 3-6 against me this year.
It ain't no. So I have to win out, actually, to tie you. Correct.
Well, I mean, I think we're going through week 16, though, right?
Oh,
so
yeah, that's right.
So you've got a couple extra weeks, but not many.
I kind of like, hey, you know what I really like? I did a pick'em this year. Just like you do a weekly pick'em, which, by the way, I had a perfect week. A literally perfect week. I picked every single NFL game right, and I won. I won 2 pick'em. But it was pretty legit. I like it. It's not one of those Survivor ones like you're doing, but I think they're pretty cool.
Yeah, I've done those before, never for money, just for fun. It is always interesting to see how well you can do it just picking the games, though, especially if you're just doing them straight up and you don't have to worry about the point spread.
Yeah, it makes me think, like, crap, I should have entered it into, like, a long, huge pool because if you get, like, perfect in a week, like, that's pretty tough to do.
Yeah, it's very tough to do.
Now, that being said, I was far from perfect, Trent, and I succeed week 10. By
the way, I would like to just remind everyone before we dive into this, 3 weeks ago on the show, Jeremy made the proclamation that he would go 8-1 the rest of the season. He is 1-2 since that proclamation. So he's already mathematically out on being right on that.
Did I say that?
You said that on air. You said you were going 8-1, and you've gone 1-2 since that moment.
So we got what? 16? No, we got 17 weeks left. 16 weeks.
What?
I'm sorry, 6 weeks. Long weeks.
Math is hard.
We got 6 weeks left. Yeah, I'm feeling it. I'm gonna go 5-1 for sure, and beat you like substantially. But
well, if you're going to do that, you're going to have to do substantially better than you did last week. So, Jeremy, let's get – before we do that, let's go ahead and remind everybody, if you're a first-time viewer, if you haven't seen us in a while, the way we do these picks, the show is called the Fantasy Football Apocalypse because we're not going to tell you to play – well, normally I would say Aaron Rodgers. Got to work that one out. We're not going to tell you to play Tom Brady. We're going to tell you to play those apocalyptic type guys, the guys that are way under the radar. And so to do that, we're only going to pick players who are available in 50% or less of all Yahoo leagues. So with that in mind, let's take a look back at how we did last week. Jeremy, who was your quarterback?
My quarterback was Eli Manning, who Trent tried to laugh me off the stage, but I stuck up with him. Stuck up for him. He had 16, should have had 18. He had one of the weirdest fumbles that the announcers were actually like, what was that? But anyway, he got 16, so I'll take it.
Yeah, I think that's more of a matter of a good fantasy day as opposed to a good real football game. But, hey, all that matters is those fantasy points. So he got the 16. Let's look at my quarterback. I picked the other New York quarterback. Really disappointed. He only scored 12. But Josh McCown has been riding a little hot streak, kind of cooled off last week. So Jeremy did have the better quarterback. But that's where things took a turn. Let's look at running back, shall we, Jeremy?
Yes. My running back pick of the week looked real good until his knee started to swell up. I'm not sure what but we did the podcast. He looked like the pick of the week. I woke up the following morning, and his knee was swollen. So I'm not sure what happened. I did not update it in time because Trent and Brad are little babies, but I did post to put Stewart.
This is fantasy. If a game is started, you can't make a change. That's how it works, Jeremy.
Ridiculous. What if somebody else was in a position? Whatever. Anyway, not a good pick. Would have been a good pick, but not a good pick.
Yeah, maybe. The Jets often struggled. He could have been what got them going, but unfortunately, we'll never know.
The X factor, actually.
Yeah, he very well could have been, but
I'm curious to see if he comes back into the bye. But anyway,
It should be noted, Jeremy did give another suggestion. It doesn't count as an official pick. And he mentioned Jonathan Stewart on the Facebook page, who actually wound up having 110 yards. He had his best game of the season. Wouldn't have made a difference in the final points, but it actually turned out to be a decent suggestion, Jeremy.
Hey, I appreciate the shot. Moving on.
With that in mind, let's move on to my running backs. My first running back was Latavius Murray, finds the end zone, puts up a nice solid 12 points. I'll gladly take that. I've picked him, I believe, 3 or 4 times already this year. I'm actually stunned that he is still below 50%, and you may hear his name later on today.
You do realize I picked him the 2 weeks prior to that, so he's been picked for 5 straight weeks. He's been under 50% for 5 straight weeks, and he's had double digits for, 3 straight weeks now?
No, he had the game in the middle he didn't, but
That's right. And, I mean, he's nothing special, but he's a great apocalyptic pick, I'll tell you that much.
Yep, all about the volume.
Right. So moving on, my next running back was Damian Williams, who didn't have the greatest of games. The Dolphins didn't have the greatest of games. I might be hoping they change that up next week, but we will see. Damian Williams had 5. Game flow.
So for me, my other running back, really disappointing effort. I thought this was going to be his breakout game, and he had the touches. The production just wasn't there, though. Thomas Rawls also matches Damian Williams. He only puts up 5 points. So a pretty disappointing effort. I thought it would be his best game of the year. Just wasn't there, and I'm starting to feel like it might not come back for Thomas Rawls. The injuries might have just been too much for him. It's so frustrating though, because he had so much promise 2 years ago. Like, he looked like he was going to be one of the best running backs in the league for the next 5 to 7 years, and
right.
It's just not there.
He wants to commit to him, but he just can't do it. I don't know if it's mental. I don't know what the deal is, but anyway.
Although I saw today, CJ Prosise is heading to the IR also. So
really?
The volume's still going to be there for Thomas Rawls. So if he can ever get right, he's going to have a chance.
Their line is so bad now.
Yeah. So disappointing. Let's move on, though. Jeremy, who was your wide receiver last week?
All right. My wide receiver was Marquise Lee, who was a great pick. Definitely not a wide receiver pick of the week, but he was up there. Marquise Lee, if he's available, which he's, I believe, 57% now, but go scoop this guy up. Put him on your bench at least. He's had like 4 straight double-digit games, maybe 5. Alan Hearns will not be playing this week, something to monitor. I didn't like his matchup, but I do like him if you need him. He's playing Pittsburgh, and Pittsburgh, Joe Hayden just broke his leg, so he's out for the season. Their secondary may be a little bit more open. So anyway.
Yeah, Marquise Lee definitely had a great game, but you know who had an even better game?
I do.
And Robert Woods.
When I saw the first one go in, I shook my head, and when I saw the second one go in, I just laughed.
So it's funny because I picked him last week as well when he scored 2 touchdowns and had 23 points. And I said on the show last week, hey, I'm going to pick him again. Don't expect him to score 23 points, though, but I'll be happy if he scores around 15. He blew by the 23-point mark. 37 points on Sunday. That is 60 total points over his last 2 weeks. He had 8 catches for 171 yards, 2 TDs, including a 94-yarder that I don't know if you saw the actual play, Jeremy, on the 94-yard touchdown, but Goff threw the ball from his own end zone to the 50. That ball was in the air for 50 yards. This was not some screen pass that Robert Woods busted. This was Goff airing it out and Robert Woods taking it all the way home. It was quite the play, quite the game, and the Rams offense is stunningly looking good.
Kurt Warner is to Jared Goff. Torrey Holt is to probably. Well, no, I would say Isaac Bruce is more like. Let's see. Man, you see where I'm going with that. The greatest show.
Master of the analogies.
So there we go.
Marshall
Sammy Watkins
to Todd Gurley, yes.
Yeah, right. Isaac Bruce, Sammy Watkins, etc. The greatest show on turf is the Rams.
Ricky Prohl is Cooper Kupp.
What is going on, man? What is going on? But anyway, that was that could be the record for this show so far, 37.
I believe it is. Yeah.
Yeah. That's pretty legit. I'll get it next year.
Before we move on with our picks, I was thinking about this on Sunday after Jared Goff had another 355-yard, 3-touchdown outing. Is Jared Goff in the MVP race now? Is that a thing?
Yeah, and so is Carson Wentz. I mean, both those guys are literally in the MVP race. You know who is the MVP? Russell Wilson. He's literally the most valuable player.
I agree. And I was actually looking at the Vegas odds. Tom Brady is still the favorite to win the award in Vegas.
Oh.
I mean, the numbers are there, and the Patriots are still the best team in the AFC. So
his numbers they're not better. I mean, dude, Deshaun Watson's numbers were better than his.
But the Texans were 3-4 with Deshaun Watson. The Patriots are 7-2. Winning
plays. Are Wentz's numbers better than Brady's?
They're pretty comparable.
I'm pretty sure they're better.
Wentz has more touchdowns, but Brady, as always, has the fewest picks, so his efficiency numbers are through the roof. Plus, the MVP, as we see every year, it's all about the storyline, and there's something to be said about the storyline of a 40-year-old having the kind of season Brady has. So that could propel Brady to the award. But there's there's still a lot of guys that can win the award, though. Like you said, Goff, Wentz, Russell Wilson, they all have to be taken seriously as contenders. And don't forget, Alex Smith is still out there. If Alex Smith has a second half like he did the first half and they win some more games, Alex Smith could be a legitimate contender also.
He could. I don't think he will. I think the Chiefs will come down to reality a little bit, but they're definitely one of the better teams in the NFL. But moving on, my second wide receiver pick from last week was Jermaine Curse. Oh, for the first time, I got his name right.
And only because you could see the graphic telling you what it was.
100%. Jermaine Curse had 7. You like to be higher than that for sure, but McCown had a down game. So obviously Curse. Well, Robbie Anderson had a fine game, so it is what it is.
Robbie Anderson's legit.
Yeah, he is legit. Well,
right, so awkward silence. Moving on. My second wide receiver last week, I took a bit of a flyer on Danny Amendola. He matched Curse's 7, so it wasn't the biggest game. But part of the reason was the Patriots just had such a big lead so early that they just weren't throwing the ball a ton in the second half. So he caught all 4 of his. Yeah, he caught all 4 of his targets though. There'll be better days for Amendola, but just wasn't there this week.
Correct. All right, moving on to the last final pick of the week at tight end. I picked a guy who finally let me down, Tyler Kroft, with a whopping 1 point. I feel like that was personal, and he watched the show and just made a statement. So not rolling with him again this week, even though he does have actually a pretty good matchup. He was my number 2 for the week.
So there you see Jeremy's total for the week was 48 points. We'll give you my tight end, who Jeremy mocked, and then he proceeded to score a touchdown. Eric Ebron puts up 11, giving me a grand total for the week of 84, just the opposite of Jeremy's 48. Soundly Jeremy to bring my overall record versus Jeremy this year to 6-3. Let's go ahead and take a quick. What was that, Jeremy?
I could hear that wind. You said soundly.
So let's go ahead and quickly run back through the picks last week and show you the optimal lineup. Quarterbacks was a battle of McCown versus Manning. Manning was the better choice there with his 16. Running backs, we saw Latavius Murray scored 12. Forte didn't play. Didn't really matter. Forte had a nice game, so Murray was the better pick there. And then at the other running back position, take your pick. Rawls and Williams both had 5.
Oof. Pretty rough there, but it gets better on the south side of the lineup. We have Robert Woods versus Jermaine Curse, a whopping 37. Again, the best pick we've ever had on this show. So congrats to Trent. That's excellent. Marquise Lee outscored Andy Amendola 19, and at tight end, we had Trent's pick of Eric Ebron 11 over Tyler Kroft at 1, giving us a grand total of 100, which actually didn't even beat last week, which is ironic because we had a 37, the highest ever.
Yeah, the Rawls-Williams spot really hurt, only getting 5 from the second running back choices. So still pretty good per player average there. I believe it's like 16 points per player, 100 divided by 6, Jeremy?
Yeah, so not bad. Again, I mean, that's really good overall if you can combine the optimum. And Trent's 84, I mean, that's nothing to be upset about. 48 is not good. What do we have, 7 guys? 6 guys?
6,
8,
yeah.
Yeah, 8 is not good. So that's definitely my low of the year. So anyway, Trent, let's get to some tasty picks this week. I believe I'm up first.
Yeah, we always give your picks first.
Oh, yeah, that's right. This is the week 11.
Week 11, you should know the format of the show that you host by this point.
Yeah, I should know it by the end. Hey, by the way, I did listen to a Barstool Sports while I got the camera on me.
Can't wait to hear where this is going.
No, I listened to a Barstool Sports, and they did a fantasy segment, and it was terrible. They were like, hey, start A.J. Green this week. I was like, what?
What kind of advice is that? Of course you're starting A.J. Green.
Yeah, so I think in the off season of the show, we need to put together our shows and actually submit them something and be like, hey, let us talk about these picks. It's much better than yours, and etc. But anyway, it's something to consider. So moving on, quarterback, I'm going with a guy who's very dear to my heart even before he was in Miami, Jason Cutler. I like him this week in a tasty matchup against the Buccaneers.
I don't think his name is Jason. I think it's just Jay.
Your name's not Trenton. I call you Trenton all the time. He has a good green matchup. Also, wide receivers against Tampa Bay have green matchups. So I like that combo there. And I think Jay Cutler, out of who we had to pick, is going to have the best game.
Yeah, the quarterback market is very, very thin this week. And
it's cornered.
just a peek behind the curtains. Whoever wins here, we always have the first pick the next week. And so generally when I win, Jeremy can tell you, I always pick a quarterback just because quarterbacks score the most points. So I think the most value is there. I took a look at this week's crop of quarterbacks and said, I'm going to go with a different position. But I did ultimately have to pick a quarterback. So here we go. He threw 51 passes last week, so ton of volume. I'm not saying he's a good football player. I'm not even saying he's good at fantasy. I'm saying volume matters, and the volume is there. I can't believe I'm saying this, for Blake Bortles. That is right. Blake Bortles, the quarterback of the Jacksonville Jaguars. The first place Jacksonville Jaguars, I should say. It's, it is what it is. It's all about the lack of depth at QB this week. Had to pick someone. He's got decent players around him. Everyone knows Leonard Fournette and Chris Ivory in the backfield. Marquise Lee, who we were just talking about at wide receiver. He's got some weapons to work with. So as an absolute flyer, I think you could do worse than Blake Bortles.
I mean, Bortles is just so bad. Like Trent said, pretty much all the negatives. He does have a green matchup, so that's okay. But he's so bad, man. And Alan Hearns is not playing this week, so yeah, Marquise Lee is there, and D.D. Westbrook might come back. So I
heard he's going to play limited snaps, but that he will play.
Yeah. So. I don't know, man. I don't like it.
I don't like it either, but I had to pick somebody.
Yeah, it is what it is. So. All right,
let's move on to running backs. Jeremy, who was your running back pick of the week?
I'm going with another Dolphin, Damian Williams. I ran out of Dolphins to pick, so I couldn't go with any more. This will be the last one that I select. He did not have a good game last week. He had 5, but he saw a decent amount of touches. I think he had 12 total. The week before that, he had 17 points. Last week, he had 5. Played a green matchup and had 17. Played a red matchup and had 5. He's got 2 green matchups coming up. So, again, I like that for him to get some more catches, more touches. I'm pretty sure Drake and him are going to split time. But in Gase's offense, I kind of think both those guys can hover double digits every week. So, green matchup, I like Damian Williams this week.
Before I jump into my thoughts on Damian Williams, just for the record, the Blake Bortles matchup, by the way, we didn't actually say who they're playing. They're playing the Cleveland Browns.
Right.
So that's why it's a good matchup. As far as Damian Williams, like you said, coming off a pretty disappointing game, 5 points. He had a decent amount of touches. I think he had 12 touches, but he only averaged 2 yards a carry. So he's going to have to be more efficient. He's going to have to be more efficient. Eddie George, the superstar. He's going to have to be more efficient, or he's going to lose playing time to Kenyon Drake, who had a 66-yard touchdown last night. So he's walking a tightrope, and he doesn't want to have another bad outing like that. So he's going to be a motivated player. And I guess he's worth rolling the dice on.
Walking a tightrope. I like that metaphor. All right, moving on, Trent. Who's your running back pick of the week?
All right, so my running back pick of the week, we were talking about it earlier. I don't know how he is still under 50%. I'm not saying he's awesome, but he is definitely usable, especially in a flex type situation. Latavius Murray, touchdown last week. He's averaging 15 touches per game since the Dalvin Cook injury. The volume is totally there. The fact that he is still 45% owned is astonishing to me when you look at some of the running backs who are higher than him. I'm not saying he's an every week lock-in to just plug and play in your lineup, but the fact that he's still readily available in more than half the leagues is incredible to me. So I think this is definitely a guy who, if he's still available in your league, you need to go grab him. And I think you can definitely flex him.
Flex him. Did you like that smooth off-camera movement?
You're such a bad host.
Oh, come on. People love it. Latavius Murray, I'm with you. Latavius. You know I have to say it. He's been picked for 5 straight weeks, purely volume. He's a good pick for what we have. I think it was Trent's pick of the week.
Yeah.
So I like it. Could be worse. Definitely the best. So my second running back is a guy who is a rookie. We haven't seen a whole lot of him. He's been injured. He fumbled, but now he's getting his shot. Samaje Perine, however the heck you say his name.
Perine.
We do not know where he's from. But anyway, so...
Yeah, he went to OU. What do you mean we don't know where he's from? He went to OU.
I was talking about his name.
Oh, okay.
Immigration status, if you want me to talk more specifically about it. But
Brad, it's that time. Brad can have a one shot. One shot, Brad. The views and opinions expressed by Jeremy Scott do not necessarily reflect those of the Fantasy Football Apocalypse, his co-host, or the producer. Thank you.
But he went to OU, and so did our producer, so it kind of makes sense. But all right. Back to football. Samaje is now the starting running back. He's a rookie. When did they draft him? What pick was he?
I think he was a 3rd rounder.
Okay, 3rd round. Quick, get Trent off the screen. I'm tired of looking at it. So Samaje is now the starting running back. They drafted him. He's a rookie. Rob Kelly's on the IR. He got 9 carries last week, 3 catches, and a touchdown receiving. So if he's the guy the whole game, I like his odds of producing double digits, and hopefully he gets in the end zone. So not the greatest matchup, but volume. I think Samaje gets some volume this week.
So I definitely do not like Samaje here. A few reasons. We've seen Robert Kelly injured earlier this year. He missed 1 game. Chris Thompson played almost that entire game, had 16 carries, plus I think 9 catches in that game. So we've seen this offense without Kelly before, and it definitely heavily featured Chris Thompson. Perine was only basically a breather replacement for him. The only reason Perine's getting this opportunity is because of a Rob Kelly injury. This is not any playing time that he's necessarily earned. He has not looked good. I'm actually surprised because I thought Perine was going to be good. I actually think I drafted him in our league as like the 15th round pick because I thought he was going to be a guy that could break out, and that just hasn't happened. So like Jeremy said, he's probably going to get some carries this week, but I think he's going to be playing second fiddle to Chris Thompson. So I don't love the pick, but we'll see who's right and who's wrong.
Chris Thompson, that little midget. All right. Trent, who is your second running back pick of the week?
Another short midget, Rex Burkhead of the New England Patriots. Back-to-back 14-point performances. He has definitely settled into his role with the Patriots here. Mike Gillislee has become a total non-factor. He was a healthy scratch last week, which Jeremy and I were talking about this when we were making our picks. This guy scored 3 touchdowns week 1, looked like he was going to be the new LeGarrette Blount, and has just fallen and fallen and fallen with his fantasy value to a point where he's literally not even playing now, even though he's healthy. James White, Dion Lewis, Rex Burkhead, they're all going to rotate in and out. So there is a chance that game flow works against Burkhead. But coming off back-to-back 14-point games, I think this is a guy worth taking a flyer on.
Burkhead. What a joke. Where did he go to school?
I'm not sure.
His forehead is like, first off, it's huge and super shiny. That's the only way that he's able to get around defenders. Now, unfortunately,
see, this is the type of analysis that you can't get anywhere else, folks.
Unfortunately,
Burkhead's bald head is the key to his success. No one else can give you that hard-cutting analysis.
If you think about it, he's the anti-Samson. If he grows hair, he loses all his power. So, Rogaine will not be anywhere in that guy's restroom.
Oh, my God.
Rex Burkhead is not my favorite pick. Now, I do see what Trent sees, and he does have a green matchup. But all those running backs are healthy, including Gillislee. Except he was a healthy scratch last week. But if all 4 of them are active, that would be hilarious. But there's still 3 of them.
Which it's the Patriots, so that's entirely possible because you never know what Belichick's going to do.
He just literally carry like all 4 of them in a row. They're like little minions, man. Like,
you're the first down back, you're the second down back, you're the third down back, you're the fourth down back.
Yeah, Belichick is Gru, and those guys are like little minions. But I don't know. Not my favorite pick.
All right. Well, who is your favorite pick at wide receiver, Jeremy?
Corey Davis. This guy is a rookie. The Titans drafted him in the first round. They really like him. And when he's played, Mariota feeds the guy. He almost had a big week last week. He dropped a pretty deep touchdown, but the guy had 10 targets in his first game back after like a 7-week hiatus. So he's got I don't think it's green, but it's a low yellow. So it's mid-tier, kind of on the higher mid-tier. I really like Corey Davis this week to find the end zone, hopefully. But 10 targets, I mean, gosh, if he brings down 70% of those, where I come from, that's 7 catches.
I don't know how to respond to you sometimes. I will say, for those of you who follow the Facebook page, it's worth shouting out. This was one of producer Brad's producer picks last week. You should always check to see what Brad thinks are good matchups, as he always posts his picks after the show, so you can get some thoughts from him as well on who some borderline players are worth picking as well. And Corey Davis,
he beat me last week.
Yeah, exactly. He might be better off listening to Brad than Jeremy. And Corey Davis was one of the guys that he picked last week. Like you said, the total production wasn't there, but the opportunity definitely was there. 10 targets, just didn't quite work out. But if he's still going to get that kind of volume from, I would say, a mid-tier quarterback in Marcus Mariota, like, you'll take that for sure.
Yeah, how about Mariota having somewhat of a down year? But if you look at his numbers, it's still kind of like a guy who's, you wouldn't mind on your team.
Yeah,
but,
no, for sure.
Yeah. All right. Well, Trent, give us your wide receiver pick of the week.
Yes, since Robert Woods has graduated from the 50% class, I can no longer pick him, but I will always remember you, Robert. I will always remember you.
Is he the new Martavis Bryant?
I still love you, Martavis. I won't give up on you. Big Ben just won't throw you the ball, but I understand. I understand.
Juju is amazing.
Juju is by the way, well, let's take a break because I want to talk about this. Brad, can we go back to the 2-shot before I give my wide receiver pick? Jeremy, I got offered a trade in our league. Jeremy, you're on screen right now.
Oh, God, you can't do that. You're lucky I had clothes on.
I was offered this trade last week, and why would you get naked in between your picks?
You never know.
Oh my God. Anyway, I was offered this trade in our league last week, and I did not accept it, and now I firmly regret it. As you know, I own Jerick McKinnon, who has been very good in the absence of Dalvin Cook. Right. I was offered Juju and Doug Martin for Jerick McKinnon, and I did not accept the trade.
Dang.
I just didn't like Doug Martin, but then after seeing Juju alone, I was like, oh, it hurts. I should have taken that
dude,
trade.
Juju's legit, man. He's rookie, up and coming. Here's what's so funny about Trent and I. Trent refuses to trade. Like, he sits on it. He's like, he has so much buyer's remorse. Now, true. He'll trade with his brother for sure. But like his big name guys, he won't do it. Me, for example, I have gone through so many big name guys in my years, but it's won me championships and it's lost me championships. So,
and it's looking like this year's going to be one of the down years.
Definitely down years.
You traded Le'Veon Bell. Anyway,
you do realize the trade paid off. Like, if you go back and look at the numbers, I won heavily. Like, that was one of my best trades of the year.
Well, when you're 4-6, it's not saying a whole lot.
No, I mean, if you analyze the trades, there is. I mean, it's. I'm the king of trading. What can I do? Yeah. I got to trade.
All right. Well, with that in mind, let's get back into the picks. So Jeremy picked his quarterback, and I use the term his there in more than one way, Jay Cutler. I'm going with his wide receiver, Kenny Stills. Stills is basically the third option in their passing attack. But with a good matchup, we all know Stills is the deep threat. Plus, he's gone double-digit scoring 4 out of the last 5 weeks, including last night when he had 11 points against the Panthers in that just disastrous performance. I think this is a get-right game for the Dolphins against the Buccaneers. And I think Kenny Stills finds the end zone on one of those nice long – as Jeremy is now actually undressing.
Oh, why did you see it? I'm about to go here.
So with that in mind, I am picking Kenny Stills.
Trent's just not cut out for the comedy business.
And you're not cut out for the hosting business.
You know, every time Trent has picked Kenny Stills, I like the. It's like role models. Hey, Augie, you
Where's this going?
Hey, Augie, you like Dr. Pepper? I like the idea of it, but I actually like that's exactly how I feel like Kenny Stills. Kenny, I mean, he's going to either have a double-digit game or he'll have a low game. There's no in between, but I like Cutler throwing the ball.
Awesome analysis there, Jeremy. He's either going to have double digits or he won't. It's one of the two.
Low double digits.
Way to go out on a limb.
The guy's never going to have 20 points ever. But
he had 23 weeks ago.
1 week. Come on. Same with Bortles. He had 26 1 week. Anyway, I don't like it. And I like my pick better. Much better. Well, not much better.
I can't wait until Kenny Stills does the Robert Woods. Goes for 171 yards.
It's funny because he can. Like, he's a deep ball guy. But Mike Wallace is my second wide receiver, who, yeah, I don't like him that much better than Kenny Stills, but what I do like is Joe Flacco wanting to open up.
You couldn't even say the words Joe Flacco without laughing. You literally couldn't even get it out.
Turn it on the screen. I want Joe Flacco to open up the deep ball, like you said. Jeremy Maclin's a short guy. They have a green matchup, so I think they're going to be looking to get Mike Wallace deep. He had 7 targets before the bye. Brought in 4 of those. 1 of them was a touchdown. So I think Mike Wallace has a decent shot to have a good game this week. Let's go, Joe.
So a reminder, Jeremy. It was either 3 weeks ago or 4 weeks ago. I, too, made the mistake of picking Mike Wallace. I think he posted a 0 or a 1 in that effort. And I swore to you I would never pick another member of the Ravens passing attack. And I am not, and I am laughing that you have chosen to do so. I'm staying away from Mike Wallace.
Respect. But I picked Maclin and Wallace on the show, and both of them got me double digits. Am I a Flacco whisperer?
Yeah, well, if you are, the Baltimore Ravens want to talk to you because somebody needs to talk to Flacco to get him going.
Joe. All right, Trent. give us your second wide receiver pick, and let's get this show going.
Oh, boy. Oh, Brad, don't reveal this one too soon because I want to tease this one out. I told Jeremy,
Dude, you know how badly.
pick,
hang on. You know how badly I want to ruin this for you for what you just did to me.
But you know this is good. You know this is good.
Oh, and that wasn't.
Whatever.
I'm not gonna ruin it. All right.
This guy, we pick players that are 50% or less owned. This guy is 2% owned.
Right.
Basically, any league you're in, you can go scoop this guy right now. And I absolutely love him. His name is Dontrell Inman of the Chicago Bears. Now, for those of you who are unfamiliar with Dontrell Inman, or maybe you say, that name sounds familiar, let me tell you who Dontrell Inman is. Last year, when Keenan Allen was injured for the San Diego Chargers, Dontrell Inman basically became their number one, number two type receiver and had a really solid season, over 800 yards and I think 5 touchdowns last year as a member of the Chargers. However, Keenan Allen is now healthy, and basically the playing time just wasn't there for him with the Los Angeles Chargers this year, so he had taken a back seat. However, 2 weeks ago, in desperate need of wide receiver help for their young quarterback, the Chicago Bears traded for him. Why do I hear something in the background? Jeremy, do you have your phone on?
Nope.
I just heard. Anyway, the Chicago Bears traded for him.
You're a terrible host, Trent. Oh, my gosh. You're a horrible host.
The Chicago Bears traded for him. They were on bye week 9, so he made his debut with the Bears on Sunday and proceeded to have 6 catches for 88 yards, 14 points, already established himself as the Bears' number 1 receiver. I'm not saying Mitchell Trubisky is a great quarterback or that the Bears have an explosive offense, but I am saying Dontrell Inman is going to have the volume, not just this week, but the rest of the season. And he's 2% owned right now. I would be stunned if that number is 30% in, say, 3 weeks. I think this guy's numbers are going to go through the roof. So I'm going out on a big limb here, and I'm picking Dontrell Inman as my wide receiver 2.
Well, here's a fun fact for you. I just Wikipedia'd Mitch Trubisky during that 30-minute Dontrell Inman whatever you want to call it. He is nicknamed Mr. Biscuit.
Mr. Biscuit. Hey, I love biscuits and gravy.
Mr. Biscuit. I like that nickname. Now, Mr. Biscuit, on the other hand, will be Dontrell Inman's downfall. Dontrell is I like the thought that went into this a lot more than I like the pick.
So it's like getting Stills all over again.
Yeah. You got 2 guys who are boom or bust, but no, I think Iman is it's an interesting pick. I like this guy in a FanDuel situation, especially because he'd be like $1,000. But anyway, he did have a good year with Rivers, 4 touchdowns, not 5, but
my bad, I was way off.
Yeah. Inman.
Yes, like I said the 18 times during my monologue, and you kept calling him Inman.
I'm sure you guys are going to think this is racist, but isn't that like a Muslim priest? That's just a simple question.
I don't know. I don't know my Islamic gods or whatever.
Oh, but you need to get more cultured, Trent. You're so one-dimensional. All right. Moving on, Dontrell Inman. I guess Trent likes it. I'm going to wrap us up with the start of tight ends. And had a down week last week, and I'm kind of pulling a rabbit out of a hat. But terrible quarterbacks like tight ends. C.J. Fiedorowicz had a good year last year. He's so reliable. Will Fuller went down. Who else do they have to throw to? But Fiedorowicz, and I like the way his last name is spelled and pronounced, so I like this. Fiedorowicz.
Yeah, I don't think you're pronouncing it correctly, though. It's the problem. You like how you pronounce it, not how it is pronounced.
Yeah, and I always call him Barnridge, but it was Barnage. So, I like Fyodorowicz. There's my interesting, sexy pick out of a hat. He had 5 targets last week. Not the greatest, but again, it was his first game back. He's been on the DL all year.
The DL is baseball, Jeremy. In football, it's the IR.
It was intentional.
Sure it was. To me, the problem with Fedorowicz isn't Fedorowicz himself. It's just the fact that he has Tom Savage throwing him the ball. And Savage has been awful the last 2 weeks. So I'm going to give you a tight end that I like more than Fedorowicz. Marty B! He's back home with the New England Patriots. Once again, still don't have the Brady poster up, but I have to represent the Patriots, so I picked Burkhead. I'm picking Marty B. And Jeremy, you should love it. Texas A&M guy.
No.
First game back with New England last week, only played 7 snaps because he's still dealing with a shoulder injury, but had 3 catches for like 42 yards or something like that. So as the season goes, he's going to have more yards and more playing time. He's not playing 7 snaps again. That number is going to go substantially up. Chris Hogan's still out. There's going to be a role in this offense for Marty B, who was pretty important in their Super Bowl run last year. So I think that starts now, and I'm going with Marty B.
I can really appreciate the statement you're making with this pick as far as off-field fantasy issues. But I hate the pick 100%. What I do like, though, is that you mentioned he played 7 snaps and he had 3 catches out of that. That's kind of cool. That's just straight Belichick feeding him. But that's
and it tells you that when he's on the field, Brady's looking for him.
Yeah, no, it does for sure. But I mean, I'm sure that was just, hey, welcome back to the team. We're not going to do that again. Gronk is still the guy.
He had like 8 touchdowns last year, didn't he? Even with Gronk. So
8 touchdowns last year. I'm about to check it. I don't think he had that many, but he had an okay year.
You talk, I'll type.
Well, our sponsors are Gillette Shave.
They would not be sponsoring any show with me on it. I can tell you that.
Anyway, I got a few tidbits. How about Case Keenum last week? I actually started that guy, believe it or not. He got me, 30-something points?
My bad. I was way off again. He had 7 touchdowns. Touchdowns.
I don't think he had 8. I don't think he was anyone
my
close.
8 guess was so wrong. He only had 7. My bad.
The fact that you were off by like 15%, you're off by 20% on the other one. So about 15 on this. Yeah, that's not good.
You're so full of crap.
Let me just skew the numbers like a liberal. But anyway, boys. So Trent, any parting words?
I'll address the Case Keenum thing. It's funny because Keenum had arguably his best game of the year last week. 304 yards, 4 touchdowns. Did throw 2 terrible interceptions back to back, but other than that, had a really good game. But after the game, Mike Zimmer wasn't very committal about Keenum going forward because, of course, it was Teddy Bridgewater's first game back as a member of the active roster. Now, all signs point to Keenum still being the quarterback this week, but that looks like it's going to change. Which it makes
how Bridgewater looks.
It makes sense. Yes, the Vikings are 7-2, but they have to find out what they have in Teddy Bridgewater for the future of their team. Bradford's gone at the end of the year. Bridgewater's gone at the end of the year, and Keenum's gone at the end of the year. So you know what Case Keenum is, and you're never going to win a Super Bowl with Case Keenum. But if Teddy Bridgewater can get back to what he was, you could possibly win a Super Bowl with Teddy Bridgewater.
Especially if he's better. And I mean, they got weapons,
They gotta get him out there at some point. Probably won't be this week, but in the next 2 to 3 weeks, we're probably going to see Teddy ball game back out there.
All right, I got one final question for you as we go. Is Adam Thielen better than Stephon Diggs?
Ooh, that's an interesting question. Now, Diggs has missed a lot of time this year because of injury, but how's this for stat? The entire list of players in the NFL this year who have 5 catches every single game. Adam Thielen.
It's just Adam Thielen.
The only one.
Also, go back further. I don't think he's had less than 4 catches ever.
So Thielen is a very interesting guy. Keenum definitely trusts him. It'll be interesting to see what he kind of chemistry he has with Bridgewater when Bridgewater gets back in there. But Thielen looks great, especially in a PPR situation.
Like, what's the deal?
Thielen doesn't score a ton of touchdowns, but in a PPR situation, Thielen is legit.
Yeah. Yeah, I like the Vikings, man. They're a young team moving forward. So anyway, we appreciate everybody listening. We'll be here next week. Monitor your injuries throughout the week. And if you need to make a replacement, use one of these guys. We'll see you next week.
Wait. Before we go, we're not going to forget to mention it this time. We want to see your picks. Submit your own lineup. And if you can beat us, you're going to be entered into a drawing to win tickets to either a Dallas Mavericks game or a Houston Rockets game, but you have to beat us. And if Jeremy has a week like he did last week, everybody can beat him. So you want to join the competition.
Yeah, that was a bad week. Woo! All right.
So with that in mind, let's call it a show, boys. We'll see y'all next week.
I'll get that victory.